Welcome to Doc's Lab and our second Master Series. Welcome to Doc's Lab and our second Master Series. I do believe this is the 111th video in our second Master Series, the 60th video on basic processors, the 23rd video on sculpting processors, and the 7th video on saturation, and this is our final words on saturation. So basically, first of all, that we talked about quite a bit of stuff, and we had a pretty good detailed look at saturation with the videos we talked about. And in the last video, we even talked about some detailed application types, using things like automation, using gates, using samplers and synths and all kinds of things that can really help you fine-tune your workflow. And in the video we talked about basic tools for those of you who are more generalized usage or more genre oriented, can sometimes get away with a much simplified workflow. Does that make sense? But when you need some detailed application, like we talked about quite a few ways to really get some good results, and especially on stuff that's out front in the mix that's going to really be heard. Stuff that's far in the back in the mix, sometimes you don't have to do as much work on it besides clean it up really well, because it's, it starts to get blended into the mix. So kind of keep those things in mind. We talked about, applications. I love my trash too, and it's not that expensive. And I love the presets that I have on it. I've got all the basic presets for doing any type of saturation work that do a really good job. And, we talked a little bit about the full spectrum non-harmonic distortion saturation and some issues with that, and how that's going to take experimentation on your part some. And so you really need to, the next part is you experimenting and practicing using it in any type of audio files or captures you're working with, because a different piece of audio can be very different. Even though you might think that you worked on this piano that's going to work on every piano capture you have, and sometimes it doesn't. And they all have different characteristics that you have to work with differently. So it just takes work on your part, becoming that next level master audio engineer, to really take this to the next level and start experimenting and practicing with it, so that you're able to utilize these things well and familiarize yourself with them well. So, I hope that made it pretty clear, so that, you can really get in there now and get in there with your noise and your saturation and really start utilizing those, and to work on that three-tiered saturation that we've talked about, to really help refine your captures and be able to sculpt on those fundamental levels that can have a huge impact on the quality of the sound once you get done processing. You would be amazed how many times that I've taken a vocal or something that just, it's kind of blah, and then used that system to just make it sound awesome, just like, yeah, dude, and it can help you with, inexpensive equipment, make it sound better and things like that. So just keep those things in mind while experimenting, and, take it and run. There's a lot of information, and you becoming that next level master audio engineer this is the part where you have homework now, that you really have to apply yourself, utilizing these things, familiarizing yourself with these things, and perfecting the usage of them. That is going to take time on your part in your studio, implementing the things I've talked about and experimenting with them and practicing with them. So I really hope that helps you. If you have any questions, leave some comments. But I try to keep it as simple as possible, because it can be a very complicated issue. And the whole concept is it's really has been derived from things, old school stuff that they didn't really like, they had to just live with. And it can have, it kind of worked its way into the mainstream, that, they eventually figured out that it can have a really cool effect, because there's noise, saturation, and, that kind of stuff going on everywhere. So I mean, you can utilize it as tools to make things better, because everything has noise and saturation in it that is part of its characteristics that are sounds that you like. So you adding them to certain situations, that you can enhance things with them greatly. Don't be afraid sometimes you don't do any of it. There's been times where I got some track that I ain't going to put no saturation on. It sounds fine. You know, I might mess around a little bit, but there's been plenty of times it's a really great capture. It's a really good sound. The instrument was sculpted well, or the vocalist is an awesome performer, got a great voice, and I'm not fussing with it. It's like, it's perfect. Yeah, dude, I did some equalization work on it and some bodybuilding and my reverberation work, and it's just awesome. And I'm not messing with it at all. But a lot of times that I can improve on it some. The better of an engineer you get, the more often you'll find I can make it better. I will take it into my laboratory and I will make it better. And you will get very, and it's a great feeling, but, just try not to get lost in it to where you have to spend, die in the processing phase, to make everything totally perfect, because, it's like some things ain't going to get heard in the mix. So there's a fine line to where that's going to get heard and that isn't, and that's going to take a lot of practice on your part, experimentation, working on your critical listening, and as you start to mix things together, you'll get a better idea of what's being heard and what's being a waste of time. You have no idea how many times I've tried, when I first got into this kind of stuff and this sound sculpting, I'd be screwing with oboes way in the background on this pop production that were, fill for this pop production, that nobody was going to hear any of that. And then I eventually realized I could clean it up, and it was better to clean it up and not mess with it too much, because it really wasn't ever being heard. If I can improve it and it was being heard, then I would. If I can improve it, but it's not going to be heard and there's no way, then I don't. But most of the time, if you cause something to be better, that it more likely is going to make everything else sound better. But there's been a few times where it was just overkill. So keep that in mind so you don't go nuts trying to fix something that's just going to get lost in the mix anyway, that's just background fill, wash in the background or something. There's no point in you spending that kind of time and working on that kind of detailed work for something that's never going to get heard. But that doesn't mean that, it's questionable most of the time, because I've found that most of the time if I can improve it, I do, because it is going to be noticeable as things blend together in the mix. So keep that in mind also. So I really hope you enjoyed this saturation segment. I certainly hope that gives you enough homework to do so that you can work on becoming that next level master audio engineer with your saturation. And next we're going to talk about doing some harmonic work. So I hope you enjoyed this segment on saturation, and I will see you in the next video.